Good morning. I'd like to call the November meeting of the Kansas State Board of Education to order and to welcome all of you to our meeting today. There were a few people I wanted to recognize especially before we begin our meeting and thank them for coming, representatives from some of our schools of education. We have Dr. Mary Skaggs and her student teacher, Courtney Bodeker. Did I say it right? Thank you for being here. And is Laura Wiseman from Washburn here? We had word that a student from Washburn was going to be in attendance, so maybe she'll slip in later. All board members are present, so we will begin our meeting with a reading of the mission statement. The mission of the State Board of Education is to prepare Kansas students for lifelong success through rigorous quality academic instruction, career training, and character development according to each student's gifts and talents. Our next order of business is to have a moment of silence, so I would ask you to join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. And standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will need to approve our agenda. Do I hear a motion to that effect? Moved by Ken Willard, seconded by Carolyn Campbell. All in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you. Next, we will need a motion to approve our October minutes. First, we will need a motion to approve the October 14th minutes. Dina Horst moves and Steve Roberts seconds that motion. Is there discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you. That was a 10-0 vote. The next minutes to be approved are the special meeting on October 29th. Need a motion to approve those? Carolyn Campbell, seconded by Jim McNeese. All in favor indicate by raising your hand. Thank you. So we have approved our minutes. Thank you very much. And we are ready to move on and welcome Gary Musselman, who's with us today, to give us a report on our annual report, I think, on the Kansas State High School Activities Association. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Members of the board, thank you very much. Acting Commissioner, thank you for the opportunity to present the report to you. Mr. Neuenswander, I want to thank members of the board for your service. Staff has helped, I think, in advance. You were given 3 or 4 handouts, and I'll just try to call your attention to those as I move through just several things and sort of take the year in review and compress it into 15 minutes here for you. Try to tell you some things that are going on At the association, those of you who may not be familiar with the High School Activity Association in Kansas, we are an activities association. We're not purely an athletic association. I think people oftentimes are of the opinion or understanding, perhaps mistakenly, that all we deal with are athletics, and we don't. We're happy and proud to be one of those 27 states in the nation that are an activities association, well-rounded. Your mission statement talking about character development in young people is very much in concert with what ours reads, and the idea of developing character in young people through activities and experiential learning, be it the fine arts, music, scholars, academic competitions, and or sports, or hopefully all of the above. The data, the research is really pretty strong. The correlations between academic success and kids who are involved is extremely high. One of the programs we're very proud to assist with each year.
Thank you. Just trying to get your report.
That is okay.
Thanks.
One of the things that we see and really are pleased to be part of every year, along with the State Board of Ed and other educator agencies, is the Kansas Governor Scholar Program, and where we honor the top 1% of the senior class in May of every year. And years ago, we began surveying with the department, your Information Services Department, the involvement of those kids in school activities during their time in high school. And that 99.9% involvement of those top 1% of the seniors is fairly indicative. Not too many years ago, KU did a study of students in Kansas, about 60 to 65,000 students in Kansas involved in high schools that year, through checking through our eligibility system and kind of cross-referencing that with data from the State Department to try to ascertain the answer to that age-old question: do kids who are in activities academically succeed better or at greater rates? And their findings were really quite remarkable. They confirmed what a lot of us thought was true, but we never really had numbers. We posted that on our website. It's been up there under new topics for several years. But just among the findings, in every subset of the population of students, male, female, all minority groups, low SES kids, all the kids that are participating are doing better in markers like graduation rates, higher test scores, higher ACT scores, higher reported GPAs. And the real shocker was dropout rates. That year in Kansas, I think they studied 08, 09. Somewhere near about 2,100 kids dropped out of high school. Just to give you that point of reference, Wichita East High School is our largest classified school this year with 2,103 kids. Okay, so with 2,100 dropouts, or roughly thereabouts, in a given year, one or two here, two or three here, one here, that number adds up. So when they looked at that dropout group and studied them for were they involved in activities, the answer was 94% were not. What that tells us is what we think we really already knew. Kids want a place to connect. Kids want a place to belong. It doesn't matter if it's the band manager. It doesn't matter if it's the star of the football team, the lead in the play, or the third flute. They just want to be part of something that's bigger than them. Or if they do that, the chances of staying in school, staying motivated, staying positive, getting out of bed, having a place to go and a purpose to go there, and people who are counting on them, be that their adult coaches, teachers, or sponsors, or their friends, teammates, castmates, orchestra mates, whatever, kids do better. So, we know that, but we have empirical data that tells us that. It's not just a hunch that we have. I think that's interesting. So I want to make sure you're aware of that. I want to thank, the last time obviously I was before you was last spring. We were in the process of making a change to a bylaw that was necessary due to a change in statute. Just to update you on that, we are transitioning. Obviously, there were 4 at-large appointments from the state board that were kind of a collaborative appointment between our board and you. Teresa Clowns from Baldwin City remains in one of those positions, and Doug Glenn from Topeka remains in the other. They will finish their term at the end of this school year, and then the governor will appoint 2 people to replace those individuals for the next 2-year cycle. The governor's office sent us the appointments of Pam McComas from Topeka. Pam is a retired educator, outstanding debate coach, Ironically, we had submitted her for a national level recognition award in speech and debate coaching just about 2-3 weeks prior to the fact that she was appointed to our board, which has nothing to do with anything. It just speaks to the quality of the individual as she is. The other governor's appointment to our board of directors was a legislator from Johnson County, Barbara Bollier is the other appointee. So Barbara will represent her congressional district for a 2-year period. So that's the update on that governance issue, if you will. This year we are just concluding the month of October, where we recognize National Activities Week. The demographics of our association look like this. We are a voluntary association, so that everybody understands. Schools join us by choice. They're not required. They're not obligated to do so. If they join by choice, whether they're public schools or private schools, they've got to be accredited schools, okay? Accredited through the State Department of Education or some other nationally recognized accrediting body. Through the years, I've worked with various commissioners to ensure that schools who weren't State Department of Ed accredited were accredited through North Central or the independent schools in the Southwest or other kinds of accrediting bodies that the U.S. Department of Ed recognized. So we have this year 354 high school member schools. We have 405 middle junior high member schools. We have 29 schools that are not member schools, but they're on a list we call approved schools. These are schools who typically are small, oftentimes are religiously based schools, small schools, who probably couldn't comply with all of the rules and regulations of full membership. And yet they want the opportunity, if they can comply with certain requirements, to be able to participate with or against member schools. And this affords them that opportunity. So it's a very, very positive thing, and that's been in place since the 1970s. So it really works quite well. As a state, Kansas ranks 33rd in population by my last count, and we are 27th in participation of students in high school activities. So our kids participate at really high levels, and of course that's counting kids on a single basis. We have lots and lots of young people in schools who participate in multiple things, and their parents' refrigerator door probably looks like it. There's schedules everywhere trying to keep track of who's where, and which night and what practice and all that. But that's a great thing. Some things that we always are happy to share with you. Kansas does some things that are very unique. We were only the second state in the nation to put together what we call a student advisory team 18 years ago. And it's 12 young people, 6 boys and girls from each of the 6 classes of high schools. They meet twice each year. They are the voice you may hear on the radio if you're driving to a meeting or home and you hear a spot that's this little moment about what school activities means and thank you for people who serve as officials. The students write those messages, and we take them to WIBW and they record them, and they get lots and lots of radio airplay across Kansas every year. When we've shared that with other states at our national conferences, they've always wondered, well, how much did that cost and who'd you pay to write the messages? The answer is we had the kids write them because they're authentic. They come from the mouths of the kids who are living these experiences. And this group of young people to us are a wonderful focus group. They give us a lot of feedback on proposed rule changes or policies. Are we kind of heading the same direction that kids are in this day and age? Because you're constantly needing to change. The Brown document that I had distributed to you, I'm not going to talk about it except to say that's what we call a synopsis of changes. It's a 4-page, kind of a light tan. Sally's got it right there in her hand. That just simply kind of gives you a year in review of what 13-14 was like. Some are fairly insignificant rule changes or policy changes. Others are perhaps more significant. But I think that's Exhibit A to those people who would suggest, well, rules never change, and the KSHSA is the same old place it was in the 50s, and nothing ever changes. Well, I beg to differ because things are constantly changing, as they should be, because clearly schools are not the same place they were, when I went to high school or when Jana and I were talking about being new teachers together in the same year. I'm not going to tell you what year. You just have to figure that out. But it's one of these older looking superintendents just came to tell me he was a former player of mine. So would you mind if I sat down here? I think I need a couple other things about Kansas that are unique. Every year I'm happy to tell you, Cheryl Gleason's out on the road doing Kansas Association for Youth meetings. We have a program in Kansas that's 65 years old that there is nothing like it in any other state in the nation. It is a service leadership program. Some of you may have been members of KAY, Ks or Kets, and it was particularly important, founded when we were pre-Title IX and young ladies didn't have as many opportunities as they have today. And quite honestly, service and leadership are never gone out of style, nor should they. And we've got over 6,000 to 7,000 kids in Kansas high schools involved. They do phenomenal things, for their schools and for their communities and to help individuals. They earn points, they earn record, distinctions for their clubs. Cheryl does a great job. In the summer, we have a camp for 300 to 400 kids at Rock Springs. And throughout the course of the year, kids organize and conduct area conferences. They're student-led, student-planned, student-delivered through a series of what we call area presidents. So it's a really unique program and impacts thousands of kids. We also are somewhat unique in Kansas in that we are the place that student council happens. In our office today, literally when I left, there were 35 high school student council advisors there. Many of whom are teachers, some of whom are not. They're retired teachers, but they do this because it's just their calling. It's like the ministry. This is what they do. And kids just love those folks, and they do all kinds of things for their schools. It isn't just fill the pop machine, do homecoming, and we're done with student council. These are kids that do all kinds of projects and lift other people up, recognitions, et cetera, et cetera. That positions Kansas as a state association uniquely to have direct contact with students. Because it's really easy, if you're not careful in our office or in our business, our piece of the educational world, to become somewhat distanced from students. We offer activities, we govern, we deliver programs, we think they're quality, we try hard to make sure they run well. You don't control the weather, you can't control that you don't like the official that was working your child's game. We can never make everybody happy, we know that. There'll never be the perfect state championship where all the right teams got to play at the right time in the right places. But what we can do is make certain that everything we're doing is kind of focused for students and the safety and the well-being and the development of young people. Because there will be worse things in life young people experience than defeat on a scoreboard. We talked in region meetings. We just finished 7 regional meetings here, which are always interesting. We have some questions we take out, emerging issues, possible rule changes. Some get overwhelming interest and support, others don't. One that got overwhelming interest and support is kind of an extension of something we started last year. If a coach, by his or her behavior, is ejected from a contest in support of athletic officials, one of the strategies our board put in place last year is that coach now sits for a 20-minute online class called Teaching and Modeling Behavior. It's sort of a little bit of a reminder, if you will, about we didn't hire you to act inappropriately and get yourself in trouble and be an embarrassment to the school that you're working for. We didn't hire you to verbally abuse children. We didn't hire you to physically abuse kids. We hired you to be an exemplary person as an adult. We're really excited this summer about a speaker we're bringing to our 83rd annual coaching school. It's a gentleman by the name of Joe Ehrman. Mr. Ehrman is a former professional football player whose personal story is rather compelling, and his program is called Coach for America. One of the things that he talks about is coaching young people for their life experiences that will serve them the rest of their life, whatever they do, which is far more important than whatever the X's and the O's of your sport or this play or that drill. And our coaches need that. I mean, coaches need to be reminded that they are tremendously powerful models and key influential people in the lives of youngsters. Most of us think back if we played sports or if we were in the band or we were in the choir or we were in the play or we were on the debate team, we would do anything in the world to please that person in that position of authority. And with that then comes not just the power and the authority, but a sense of responsibility. And I think increasingly as schools hire people and are in a position to have to hire people to teach and lead or coach teams who are not teachers, okay? Because those two things have changed since the 80s when supplemental contracts and teaching contracts were separated. Schools now no longer have the ability to sort of force people, well, you have to coach if you want to teach, or else you can't do either. So they're left in the position to hire folks to staff these programs who aren't necessarily educator trained And so one of the things that we do, that kind of burgundy-colored sheet that I've given you from our National Federation, is a listing of classes that are available for schools to use. We have used these classes since, or some form of them, since clear back in about 81, and required certain minimum, like sports first aid and safety and fundamentals of coaching, for people who are not teachers to coach in our member schools, so that there is some continuing education piece required. We are finding schools who are using this as a way to continue just continuous improvement, continuous development, perhaps a plan of assistance to a coach who may or may not be real strong in certain areas. They're a good person. We don't want to damage their career. We're not wanting to terminate them, but we want to find help. How do we give them some help? There you go. You'll notice some of those classes are listed under the free section, which is exactly what, our recent meetings we talked about. What about students that are ejected from ball games? Should they be doing something to remind themselves of what are we doing here? This isn't club ball. This isn't I get to act any way I want to act, say anything I want to say to an official. So our schools are very supportive of a similar requirement that if a player is going to be ejected, we'll probably impose that rule that you're going to sit down and 15, 20 minutes online class, work through sportsmanship and appropriate conduct. It's just a little bit of a reminder and a wake-up call. Pretty easy to implement, no cost. We've been very reticent to impose any sort of unfunded mandate on schools. But we ask our schools the question, what other teaching field are you allowed to just never continually, or are you allowed to teach forever without continuing your education or recertification in some sense? So we're not certifying coaches, please don't misunderstand me, but this is a wonderful resource for our schools and individuals who want to just continue to improve their skill set and their knowledge in coaching pedagogy. So we think that's a wonderful resource, and we are beginning to use it more frequently in a variety of ways. Some other things I would explain just quickly without taking too much time here, but we put in the last year, I think one of our key areas of emphasis has been, I mentioned officials, strategies to retain officials, to train officials, to encourage young people to try this avocation of officiating the sports you love to play. And we've had some success. We actually gave high school seniors graduating last year an opportunity to register at no cost, saving them $40, $50 up front, putting them in conjunction, matching them up with a mentor in their area. Maybe from Sublette, Kansas, but if I'm going to go to school at Kansas State, it doesn't do me any good to have a mentor in Sublette. So we're going to put them with a mentor that's going to be where they're physically located, a mentor being a veteran official. Somebody that kind of explain, kind of hold their hand a little bit, and this is how you go to a game and pregame, and here's how you prepare, here's how you meet other officials, here's how this system works. Because it's not a good old boy closed system. Trust me, it's a system that every year people realize, I got older and the kids stayed the same age. Okay, so at 60, I don't get around the field or the court like I did when I was 50 or 40 or 30. And if officials are in it for the right reason and helping us be part of the solution, they're always looking to help and recruit younger people and cultivate talent and bring them on board. We charged our school coaches and our principals and athletic directors with that and said, here, you got 2 free coupons, if you will, for a boy and a girl from your graduating senior class. I think altogether we had 11 kids, which doesn't sound like a lot from 355 high schools, and it's not. But 11 is more than we might have had we not made the effort. So out of those 11 kids, I think 6 of them followed through with, send me the materials. I want to take that next step and see if I can do this. So the other thing, major theme last year continuously is medical issues, safety for kids. We created last year in February a standing sports medical advisory committee that will now be part of our operation going forward for perpetuity, as long as I'm involved. And I hope long thereafter. But this 12-member committee group of individuals, men and ladies, represent a whole cross-section of medical providers in Kansas, from school-based athletic trainers to MDs who are sports medicine specialists that head up major programs like Via Christi in Wichita. We've got the whole gamut, and they've met now 3 times. They've already helped bring forward a number of really positive things that we've already begun to make changes. And of course, we are part of a national federation. All the state associations join a national body. Two other hats that I wear in that respect right now. I'm in the second year of being a board member for 6 Midwest states. I represent Kansas, Nebraska, Missouri, the 2 Dakotas, and Minnesota. So I'm in year 2 of a 4-year term on that board. And I also serve as the chair of the National Federation's National Federation Foundation Board. So more meetings to get to go to. But I tell you that because the National Federation does things that are of great value to us. The coaching education classes piece would be one illustration of that. The other is, and we've had 2 Kansans that I've been successful in appointing to the National Fed Sports Medicine Committee. One of them is my office manager. Okay, when I hired this young man about 6 years ago, I was smart enough to realize he had a great skill set to be a wonderful office manager and a computer guy, but he also was a certified athletic trainer, and I kind of got a 2 for 1. So Brent Unruh, who is a Hillsborough native and a certified athletic trainer who's worked with schools in Kansas and other states, he's worked at the collegiate level, the professional level in sports medicine. He brings us just a wealth of experience and knowledge. So obviously being a smart person that I try to be once in a while, we have Brent work with as the liaison to our Sports Med Committee, and of course he's just coming back from the National Fed Sports Med Committee. We're going to be bringing to our schools, continuously things that we're looking to revisit and improve. Last year we talked a little bit about a program called Heads Up Football that Ms. Horst and I talked about. By virtue of being on the National Federation's board, the third handout I'm going to talk to you about is this one. I want you to understand what it is and what it isn't. And I don't give it to you because I'm proud to say, here, see my name, I'm on page 7. I am there. I was very pleased to be asked to serve with 25 or 6 people on this very special select group with one specific objective. And the committee membership, other than yours truly, probably reads like a who's who of sports medicine throughout the United States. There were some noted neurologists, some NFL doctors, there were some people who were extremely the experts in their field. The task here was to try to take a look at high school football and talk about what we're seeing at the NFL level, decades too late, probably, but it's good that they're at least talking about it. What do we need to look at in the way of setting any kinds of limitations, if you will, on the hours of football contact practice time? Because in most high school football programs, you've got kids who play both ways. In some high school football programs, you've got kids who have to play every down. Some of the coaches on our committee from states like Alabama with 160 players, a player plays defense or offense, but never both. And if I'm on a kickoff team or a punt team, I'm not on the offense, I'm not on the defense. So you're spreading around all the exposure of all these subconcussive blows. We're all concerned about concussion, okay? And please understand, there is better work being done at all levels now about education, knowledge for parents, for kids, for coaches, for everybody involved in high school sports, particularly the high school football. But football's not the only issue with concussion. Cheerleading, field hockey, some we don't even have. We don't have field hockey, we don't have lacrosse. But soccer, young ladies playing soccer, young men playing soccer, heading the ball. But the real issue, the real unknown in the science, research, medical community is the accumulative effect of non-concussive blows. How many times is hitting a soccer ball at the velocity that it comes, how many times does it take to do damage that doesn't show up till 20 years later? How many times does it take a youngster who's playing high school football, non-concussive blows? And of course, not every high school football player is going to be subjected to the same number. If I'm a quarterback wearing that red shirt that says to everybody on my team, don't hit this player, okay? It's different than the guy that's snapping me the football, who's the center, that's butting heads on every play we run in practice. That young man is going to be subjected to many more blows over time than I as a quarterback. So, to put it in perspective, is high school football safe? Is high school football, it absolutely is. It's safer than kids driving to and from school. Statistically, it's safer than teenage boys being involved in farming. Okay? My friend in Wisconsin, my counterpart, who just had finally kind of had enough with some reporter who was sort of over the top in their overreaction said, you know, in an email, if we're going to outlaw high school football, we probably better outlaw farming first, and then driving, and all these other things that are statistically much, much more dangerous for kids than what playing high school football would be. That doesn't give us license to say, well, we're just fine, we don't worry about anything. You continually look to get better. There used to be a guy that worked here by the name of Andy Tompkins who was fond of saying, you don't have to be bad to want to get better. That resonated with me, and it stayed with me forever. We don't want to sit by and not continue to try to do the best things we can do. I'm very happy to tell you, as our high school football season winds down and our other fall sports are all done, we have had no fatalities. We have had one serious head injury that I'm aware of with a young man in a rehabilitation center, but I'm not totally sure that that's all attributed to a football collision situation. And there is not a helmet made, nor ever will be, that will keep kids safe from concussion. So whenever schools are taken to task and challenged about how come we're not buying the very best top-of-the-line helmet, we're buying helmets that have been certified and tested, that are safe, meet the standards, a school could do no better. But somebody that wants to sell you a bigger, better, fancier helmet for more money can't protect your child, your boy, your girl wearing that helmet from concussion any more than a less expensive certified helmet would. And I think there's a lot of, it's a little bit like Ebola. There's a lot of misunderstanding. There's a lot of fear factor. There's a lot of pandering to people in a panic state that if I got a deal for you, I can sell you this helmet and your kid will be concussion proof. No such thing. Just it defies the mechanics of what causes concussion. And when you listen to the doctors that I was privileged to sit with on that committee, I'll just wrap up with this. And if you have any questions, I don't want to keep you over time. But I appreciate, again, working in the state of Kansas, because I think in the state of Kansas, the educators and the schools we have privilege to work for and with have it right. School activities should never be the tail that wags the educational dog. We're the only state in the country who measures time taken from instruction for kids and for teachers who coach them or direct them once every 4 years. We call it our loss of instructional time study. Nobody does that but Kansas. I'm not sure anybody else cares. But we have some rules that say, you can't have every ball game starting at breakfast. You got to go to school. And sometimes people don't like that because they're not used to that. They're not used to being told no, number one. Number two, well, in kid ball, club ball, we go whenever we want, wherever we want. We play as many times as we want. So we have limits on games, limits on when practices start and end, and how many games you can have. And I think that's all based on one fundamental fact, that we're here to support the mission of schools, not to get in the way of the mission of schools. I tell people this, and I absolutely mean it. We are not here to be the toy department of education. And we're never going to be the toy department of education. We're not about entertaining the community. We're not about seeing if we can put fannies in seats. Okay? If no one comes, we're still going to have great quality events for young people to be involved with. If they don't come, it's their loss. Because there's the future of Kansas. Those are the young people that are going to sit in these seats and hold my job. And it's absolutely refreshing to see those kids. It just kind of wipes away a lot of adult problems and adult issues that people want to fight over if we just remember that we're here for those young people. So we try to keep the focus on that. We try to listen to those kids. And last year, I think I mentioned to you, and I'll tell you again, our student advisory, those 12 boys and girls, put together a survey that over 6,000 of their peers responded to that told us a lot about the programs we offer and that they enjoy them. They don't think they're disproportionately important. I enjoy doing this stuff, but it's not my life's plan. I'm not going to make a living playing baseball, but I love doing that. Or I'm not going to make a living playing soccer as a young lady, but I love doing it for now. And it helps me in a lot of ways. So, we try to have rules that are a good balance between some structure, but not too much, some freedom, but not too much, because, you're looking to see that fine, workable balance. If you have any questions or concerns, I'd love to hear them always, not just right now. You always know that if you pick up the phone and call our office, you're going to get a human being, okay? And if you don't and you get a voice message, leave a message and we will get back to you. I'm available to you 24/7. I mean it. It's all on my business card, which you don't have, but I'm not real smart about trying to hide myself from folks. You've got my home phone, my cell phone, anything you need. So if there's ever a question or a concern on behalf of the school, a constituent, just a personal question, I'm available. That's my job. Thank you.
Are there questions for Gary? Well, thank you very much for being with us this morning and bringing us this update. We appreciate the work you do.
Thanks.
Next on our agenda is our Citizens Open Forum. I now declare Citizens Open Forum of the Kansas State Board of Education meeting open at 10:36 a.m. The State Board provides this opportunity for citizens to share views about topics of interest or issues currently being considered by the State Board. The State Board asks that speakers identify themselves by name and by the name of the group they represent, if applicable. The State Board also asks that each speaker focus their remarks on issues or topics. Personal attacks will not be tolerated. Each speaker shall be limited to 3 minutes. Any board questions will be for clarification. Our first speaker is Sherry Stolley, followed by Stephen Case. Shelley. Did I say Shelley?
Shelley, you said Sherry.
Okay.
Shelley.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Shelley Staley, and I am representing the Kansas Association of Health, Physical Education, Recreation, and Dance. I'm on the board, but also part of Let's Move Active Schools as part of KFORD. I came here to address the importance of movement in the classroom and throughout the whole day, and the importance of the integral connection between the mind, body, and spirit. The mind being where the brain is, hopefully, up top of your body. The body, which is the largest part of you, has all the vital organs and systems, and is also the part that gets hyper in the classroom, which might make some teachers crazy. And then the spirit, that just is the core, the reason that you move, the reason that you're energized, why you're here. And I hope that it's okay that I get you guys up to move at the end of this to show you a little how it can get you excited about what you're learning. I think it's important to realize that when you're moving in the classroom with the mind, body, and all of that functioning together, it can do a really good job of motivating your students. It keeps them energized, it keeps them active and excited about what they're learning. A lot of kids they sit a lot during the classroom, and when they're up and moving, that gets them focused on the subject that they are learning. And the movement is not just for recess, it's not just for PE, but when they come in from recess, they might need a movement to relax them. If they've been sitting for a while, they'll need a movement to get them up and moving, to get them more excited, more focused on what they're about to learn. And also after lunch, they might need a little bit of activity during that time. It has been proven that if the mind, body, and spirit work together, it can far exceed even what some of the most sophisticated computer programs can do. And you've got to move it or lose it. And I think it's very important that not only students do that, but the teachers do it. So that's what I'm trying to do in our classrooms and throughout the state. I'm not sure how much time I've been up here. So I would like everyone to get up and stand up for some movement. And you're not going to have to go very far. And I know we've been sitting for a while now, so this is called Crazy Eights, and we just start with our right hand, and we count down from 8, and then count down from 8 on our left hand, right foot, left foot, and then we go down to 7. Okay, so and you can say it with me, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And you can say it with me, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4321, 4321, 4321, 4321, 321, 321, 321, 321, 21, 21, 21, 21, 1, 1, 1. Super 8. So you have to think, you have to really think, and you got to move a little bit. So thank you. Any questions? Are we energized? Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we have Steve Case. He'll be followed by Rosie Schmidt. Hi, Steve.
Good morning. I'm Stephen Case. I'm representing the Center for STEM Learning at the University of Kansas, and I, of course, know many of you. We've worked together on some things, and that's why I'm here to talk with you today. We recently identified a problem in the state with secondary math and science teachers and the retirement eligibility for the secondary math and science teachers. Shared the data with Brad and Andy Tompkins at the Board of Regents, but we currently have over 800 secondary math and science teachers who are teaching over retirement eligibility. It's a huge cliff out there. We have been aware of this problem for some time. We're having about 140 secondary math and science teachers a year who are becoming retirement eligible, hitting that magic 85. That doesn't mean they retire, but a lot of our folks are reaching an age now and their retirement portfolios are recovering to the point that they may retire. So we've been aware of this problem for a while because 7 years ago we worked together and you all established some new regulations for science and math teacher preparation, and we established the You Can Teach program at the University of Kansas. We have slightly over 300 students in that program now. We're graduating about 50 to 60 secondary math and science teachers a year. These students have degrees in their field, and they also are certified to teach high school, grades 6 through 12. So I wanted to bring the problem up again today because the article in the Topeka Capital Journal recently raised the problem and public awareness of this problem. But I also wanted to point out that we have a solution to that problem. This is a high-quality program, and in the 7 years we've won 2 national awards for the math and science teacher preparation we've done through the Association of Public and Land-Grant Universities. We're now expanding to Johnson County and opening classes at the Edwards campus. We have an articulation agreement with Johnson County Community College. Our students are traveling through. We're establishing Degree in 3 programs. There's a lot going on. What I heard in response to the article was that the legislature last year, as you're well aware, said that anyone with a math or science degree could come in and teach a class, which obviously I'm highly opposed to. And my representative on the state board is a proponent of that also, of which I'm well aware. I live in Overland Park. The quality of the teachers that we've produced and the 140-some teachers that we have out there, they are award-winning teachers. You've given them several awards, Horizon Awards and Early Career Awards. Our NCATE review, they are teacher leaders. Not just anybody can walk in and teach effectively. And even if they're very gifted and talented, it's going to take them 3 years to figure it out. What about the kids in those 3 years? We have a solution. I had to cap my program 3 years ago because of financial constraints, and I know your discussions today are about financial constraints. We can address this problem and can do it together, and my time is up, and I'd love to come talk to you more about this at some point if you're interested. Thanks.
Thank you.
I didn't ask if there were questions.
Next, we have Rosie Schmidt, followed by Terry Collins.
Good morning. My name is Rosie Schmidt, and I'm here as a parent. In fact, I was up a little too late last night with my little guy and had a little too much coffee on the way, so if I drop my papers or stumble, forgive me. Ken, I did get your email. Thank you for your response. And thank you for your time this morning. As you can see, I would like to talk about the AP U.S. History Framework again, but first I want to mention that I've been thinking as a parent and as a taxpayer and researching and thinking some more about all the changes going on in Kansas education. And I've come to the conclusion that a good old dose of Kansas common sense would sure help in this matter. If I was chair of this board, Jana, not just an additional thing, if I was chair, I would assist every member, including myself, in spending 3 to 5 days with a teacher. We all know how these visits would go. They're usually announced, so they're not really representative of anything. And the educator that's getting the visit is usually chosen by the administrator or those in charge. Well, I'm talking about each board member doing unannounced visits to schools, picking a random school, a random teacher, and showing up unannounced. And to the extent possible, acting as an unobtrusive observer. A day in the life of a teacher, an educator, would really be interesting, and we can learn a lot, and I know a lot of you have just come out of those ranks. And then this exercise would be of no consequence to the teacher or the school. We'd probably learn that educators do not have time to put in place something I just discovered, the new social, emotional, and character development standards. And by the way, I'm wondering whose character was the measuring stick. They might not have time for administering this survey, of which one question is, quote, "My parents ask me what I think before most family decisions affecting me." This was given out to a Wichita school. Another question, quote, "Do you feel very close to your mother?" They might not have time for perusing the grit, tenacity, and perseverance, and assisting with these facial expression cameras. This is straight from the U.S. Department of Education. I guess it's going to assist with the data collecting. Facial expression cameras, posture analysis seats, pressure mouse. This is all on page 44 of Promoting Grit, Tenacity, and Perseverance. Critical factors for success in the 21st century. They might not have time to administer the national sexuality standards. I just would propose that we let teachers have more time to do what they are expert in doing, that we allow them to just do their job, use their creativity, their autonomy, their passion, and our kids will be taught very well. Lastly, since I have no time, I did bring a guide where I did do, the analysis of the Kansas standards to the new AP U.S. History standards, which are in effect this year. The first test will be given this spring. And I talked to a principal, a teacher, a parent who are familiar with this, and they said, yes, when an AP history course is being taught, it pretty much takes the place of a Kansas history class that they might have taken otherwise if AP history wasn't offered. So I just ask you to please contact Larry Krieger. I had offered to have him come. If you could possibly get him to come to the December meeting, he would be very, very informative. He's an AP history teacher of 20 years. The college board itself highly recommends him, in fact, named him one of the top teachers.
Thank
These are
you.
just some more items that are of concern, absent from APUSH, the declaration.
Thank you.
One sentence. Thank you.
Next is Terry Collins, followed by Shauna Hinkle.
It's a pleasure to be here again today. My name is Terry Collins. I'm here today to represent the Kansas Association of Special Ed Administrators regarding the additional appeal process to the emergency safety intervention regulations. I'm here to confirm that while Casey is willing to comply with an appeal process once the constitutional issues are resolved, we still do not feel that at this time there's enough data to warrant an appeal process. We believe that out of respect to the hard work of the local boards, that deference should be given to the local board. We believe that they're fully capable of implementing these regulations, including conflict resolution. And we believe that any problems that may resolve after that conflict resolution could easily be solved at the local level. You know, agencies such as Families Together, DRC, Keys for Networking are already referenced in the Special Education Process Handbook. And Casey met in Omaha last week for the four-state regional law conference, and the executive board and the leadership did authorize me to reach out to these agencies in an effort to build a relationship and strengthen our working relationship, particularly in regard to any complaints that a parent may have regarding ESI. I've already communicated with Families Together. They're very willing to work with us in resolving any issues that come out of ESI. They're going to appear at our next Casey board meeting. I've attempted to reach the board for DRC. Have not been successful in doing that yet, so I probably will just reach out to Rocky and his group, and then I also intend to speak with Keys for Networking so that we can, as a group, if there is a parental concern regarding an emergency safety intervention violation in the parent's eyes, that we can work together to resolve that. Okay. So that's what our hope would be, is that a better way than having an appeal process that doesn't give deference to a local board, that overturns the local board's decision. A better way would be for the agencies involved across the state to work together to try to resolve any issues. Now, if an additional appeal process is required, if you don't believe that we can solve those problems locally through interagency collaboration, if an appeal process is required, then Casey supports CX recommendations that came to you last month, and that the program put together by Scott Gordon and KSDE, we think we could easily live with that. Casey directors stand ready, willing, and able to provide a safe environment for all children and to work diligently to resolve any specific parental complaints. And that's really all I had to say, unless you have a question. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Shauna Hinkle, followed by Tanya Wade.
Good morning. Dear Chair Shaver and honorable members of the State Board of Education, my name is Shauna Hinkle. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today about my son, Ian Hinkle. The topic of safety in the classroom for students with disabilities is one that is very important to me. Last year, my 10-year-old son, whom is nonverbal and diagnosed with severe autism, sustained injuries while attending a self-contained classroom. Upon arriving home on the school bus on September 10, 2013, I noticed severe bruising and abrasions on both of Ian's wrists. Though the teacher had spoken to me via email and Ian's communication notebook that day, there was no mention of any injuries noticed or sustained by school staff. I took Ian to the ER for x-rays and medical care immediately, as the bruising was so extensive I feared his wrist might be broken. The next day I followed up with the school to find them to be extremely hostile and uncooperative. I filed a police report. Ian's doctor and targeted case manager notified CPS. There was never any answer given to me what happened to my son. I sent him to school without injuries, and they returned him with injuries. There was no accountability and no way for me to assure that my son would be safe, sent back to the very classroom that sent him home like that. I requested a change of center of attendance which the school co-op denied during the emergency IEP meeting, citing the reason being it would violate least restrictive environment. The laws put in place to protect students with disabilities from not getting a fair and appropriate education were now being used against my son. The worst part about it was that there was nothing I could do. I exhausted all avenues available to me to appeal for help or even a fair look into the situation. I had no choice but to withdraw my son from public school and homeschool him. I mailed Mark Ward a detailed document about what happened, including all supporting documents such as photos and doctor's notes. The answer I received was that what happened to my son was wrong, but unfortunately there was nothing the state board could do about it. That is why I'm here today. This needs to change. There needs to be clear, easily accessible ways for a parent to file complaints and grievances within our state's educational system. That is impartial and fair. No parent should have to pull their child from a public school setting because we fear for their safety. There needs to be a way to enforce current regulations so that children like Ian can have access to a public education in a safe environment where their rights matter. Parents need a way to file an independent complaint to the state board that can actively investigate any alleged wrongdoing so the current regulations are enforceable and doing what they are designed to do, which is keep students safe while at school. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Tanya Wade, followed by Rocky Nichols. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, my screen was blank. Steve Roberts.
No questions, Madam Chair.
Okay. Sally Cobble?
That was on another one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Carolyn Campbell?
Thank you. Well, thank you. I'm sorry. I had seen those two names, and I thought it was for Ms. Hinkle. I have concerns about this because I really...
Would you like Ms. Hinkle?
Would you like her to return to the podium?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, I'm very much concerned that, you felt like you had to remove your child from public school and to homeschool, and that you were told that, that there was nothing that the state board could do. Now, when was that? Was that close to the September date?
Yeah, I think after I finished all of the IEP and went as far as I could go there, I believe I mailed that and got the answer after making several phone calls in November.
But you mailed it to here? To the agency
to Mike
here?
Ward, and I think somebody named Peggy something spoke to me. I emailed and spoke to a couple of different people.
Okay. Well, I don't really want to put a district on spots, but I would like to know what, if this was in my district, I think we need to know a little bit more about what district this is so that we can sort of help respond.
Well, we can direct it to the appropriate staff member.
Okay. Thank you.
Is that all?
I think so.
Okay.
I need probably just get with you one-on-one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, I'm sorry. I was watching for hands instead of looking at my screen. So if I skipped somebody, I apologize. Okay, we are now ready for Tanya Wade. Sorry, Tanya.
That's okay. I'd like to say good morning to everyone. Dear members of the State Board of Education, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for listening to me. My name is Tanya A. Wade. I'm the parent of a 15-year-old child with a disability. As a parent of a child with a disability, I wanted to offer some comments regarding the current regulations on seclusion and restraints and the draft appeal process. the current policy on ESI must be improved. I support the changes recommended by the Disability Rights Center of Kansas. This is a serious issue. There have been, unfortunately, many different cases throughout the United States where children, both verbal and nonverbal, was harmed due to the lack of effective policy on seclusion and restraints. As a parent, one must think, or like to think, a school district that preaches about No Child Left Behind would be the last place that our children will fall victims to abuse. As a parent, we deserve enforceable policy that creates an effective standard all across the state. We deserve to have a process where we can file a complaint about improper use of ESI, and our complaints and words will be treated as the same as a school. Often children are removed from the classrooms to a more restrictive environment simply because it's easier and they have less children. My child, who has autism, has fallen victim to these tactics, which was placed upon her by the school district. When I complained about it, I was basically told by the school board that if I didn't like it here, I should leave the district. I was told when trying to file a complaint through Child Protective Services that I could not file against the school, but rather the school can file against me. This is what I and other parents are up against. You have to have a fair policy that treats us equal with the school. My child was punished at the hands of an adult. Because of my belief in the school district thinking that one wouldn't harm her, therefore my daughter was punished using chemically restraints. I'd just like to say thank you, because my time is up. Okay.
Well, thank you, and we will read the rest of your testimony. I'm watching John Bacon.
Well, real quick, I was just reading the written testimony here, and it talked about chemically restrained. I don't know if that's something that we have addressed in our regulation. I was just wanting to, what is that? Is that a prescribed medicine from
to control the child.
From a doctor, or was that just?
It's prescribed from the doctor.
Okay.
From the doctor.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any more questions?
Our last speaker will be Rocky Nichols.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Rocky Nichols, Executive Director of the Disability Rights Center of Kansas. A parent, Tammy Cheney, cannot be here today, so she had me turn in her testimony, which is part of my packet. Obviously, parents are really busy, and more would be here if they could. Over 20 different disability organizations, the Coalition to Protect Children from Unnecessary Seclusion and Restraint, have asked the board to make changes, 3 specific things regarding ESI. 1, create a uniform statewide standard. 2, ensure parents and schools are treated as equal in regards to these complaints. And 3, follow the U.S. Department of Education regarding a threshold of when ESI may be used. The current language regarding uniform statewide standard, it only requires school districts to, quote, have a policy and to technically comply with the language of that, of the regulation in their policy. It does not require staff members to abide by the limitations of the regulation. That requirement is left to the local level. As the KSDE Legal Counsel has told the board about the regulation, it does not keep a teacher from using arm bars or throwing a student in a room for 4 hours in seclusion. Those things would violate the regulation, but that's the problem with just requiring a policy instead of having a uniform statewide standard. And as SEAC was told by KSDE, as long as the regulation only requires a policy, then hearing officers would simply rule on the side of schools as long as they have technically followed, not followed, but technically written their policy the right way. The fix to this is simple. Amend the ESI regulation to require districts to follow a statewide standard, and do that by copying and pasting the current language you have regarding requirements of policies and making that a statewide standard. That would follow the board's general supervisory powers, and we know that that method, creating a uniform statewide standard, is clearly constitutional. Creating a uniform statewide standard has already been ran up the proverbial flagpole, and everyone is saluted. When Rod Beaker wrote his uniform standards in 2006, it was reviewed for constitutionality and functionality by the Board Legal Counsel, former KSDE Legal Counsel, Secretary of State, Kansas Attorney General, Department of Administration, and the Legislative Rules and Reg Committee. They've already signed off on that method. So if you do that and follow the other things here, you'll ensure that it's followed. The last thing I'll report out, Madam Chair, is I've included a letter from CPI. CPI has been used as a justification for why you have an inferior standard regarding the immediate danger to self or others rather than a more expansive term. And CPI clarifies that their recommendation is that you go with something more akin to the U.S. Department of Ed, to quote their letter, adding language like, quote, danger of serious bodily harm or serious physical harm. Serious physical harm is the standard DRC and the U.S. Department of Ed recommend. Thank you.
Thank you. The State Board Citizen Open Forum is closed at 11:08 a.m. We would like to thank our speakers for sharing their views with the board. The State Board will determine if any of the issues should be addressed as an agenda item at a future meeting. Now I would like to take about a 7-minute break until 11:15. We have been sitting for quite a while, and we will reconvene the meeting at 11:15. It appears that most of our board members are in the room, so I would ask them to return to the table so we can proceed with our meeting. Okay. We may be okay. We're pleased to have Madeline Berkendine with us today to give us an update on our Schools for the Blind and the Deaf, our quarterly report. So welcome. You might pull that a little closer to you. There you go.
Lack the height of some of the former speakers. I would like to talk about the School for the Blind first. And our quarterly report you've gotten, I believe. I'm going to hit some high notes. Community-based instruction, we've got a renewed emphasis on that for students with multiple disabilities. We have the belief that every student, regardless of the severity of those disabilities, is capable of living, working, and recreating in the community. It's meaningful preparation for postgraduate work. It also provides an opportunity to have the students gain work skills at places of employment that match their interests and their skill set. Currently, we're partnering with the local animal shelter, Great Plains SPCA. We're developing video portfolios of students completing their work tasks, and that can be used then to help broker employment for those students near their own homes. We're also partnering with Price Chopper to deliver fresh flowers to us every week. They're of the day-old variety, and students can cut and arrange and deliver those flowers on campus, and then later we'll do it in the community as well. Professional development, we've been partnering with the Perkins School for the Blind to develop year-long professional development opportunities. Our goal is to reinforce best practices and to promote a culture of learning. Next is our Learning for Life program, which we have had for some time. We've renewed our efforts in this area. It extends our learning beyond the school day into the dorm. It's a unique program taught by a certified blind rehabilitation teacher who focuses on independent living skills such as money management, cleaning, grooming, food preparation, shopping, and cooking. And students gain confidence in those areas as well as independence while they do practical and real-life experiences. Our outreach is continuing to do capacity building and to have a more equitable approach for meeting the needs of students with blindness and low vision across the state. We have 8 outreach specialists who are assisting teachers, other staff, administrators in local education agencies and in Part C agencies. One new program that we've started is the Kansas Vision Professionals Group Chat and Chew. It's designed for vision professionals in regional areas, and they come together to collaborate and participate in professional development activities with our outreach teachers. It's an opportunity to seek technical assistance and help from the outreach services team. Currently, we had 4 meetings scheduled this semester, October through December. Those are in Wichita, Manhattan, Hutchinson, and Great Bend. Wichita was the first one, and they've asked for the team to come back. And then in the spring, we have scheduled Topeka, Emporia, Kansas City, and Atchison. The first quarter of the year, the outreach department did collaborative services to 99 school-age children, and of those, 21 are deafblind. We had 18 referrals come in, and we have provided follow-up service to all of those. Discussing the collaborative consultation and coaching services that we have, we've met with and worked with 30 LEAs and Part C agencies that are listed in the report. And just touching on the future a little bit with the scope of outreach as we do our planning, it's dealing with ongoing mentoring and technical assistance to assist LEAs and Part C agencies regarding current trends and best practices. Assisting LEAs with the identification of a teacher who the district believes would be interested in pursuing certification as a teacher of the blind or as an orientation mobility specialist. We do ongoing mentoring and support of any identified teacher and also current teachers in training. We provide assessments, functional vision, learning media, orientation and mobility, and assistive technology. We support the acquisition of Braille literacy as mandated by OSEP in a recent letter, and collaborate with families to include training in Braille, assistive technology, and the whole expanded core curriculum for the blind. We are collaborating and hope to do more with statewide agencies, state consumer organizations, and national organizations that serve blind and visually impaired students. And finally, our statewide low vision initiative. The International Agency for the Prevention of Blindness selects a program from one region in the world and one cause for each region. I think there were 6 regions. Anyway, the Can Love Kids program, our low vision program that goes to 10 regional cities in the state, that case study was presented as representative of the North American region in the publication regarding World Sight Day. This was October 9th of this year. And that journal is published in various languages and distributed around the world. So we have international fame now with our program of Can Love Kids. During the first quarter, those clinics evaluated 27 students in 7 clinics in Atchison, Hayes, Kansas City, Manhattan, Salina, and Topeka. I'm going to not touch upon anything else in the main part of the report because I wanted to have a couple of minutes to show you some highlights from an article. It was in the Johnson County 913 section of the Kansas City Star. It was a wonderful article on the school, originally because of the Braille Challenge national event and a girl from Leawood who got an award. But because of the reporter's enthusiasm, it developed into a feature-length article, and I will attempt to go through these so you can see the pictures as I talk about it. The reporter, Kimberly Stern, shadowed one of our students, Fabia Sifrin, throughout part of his day. And she wrote near the beginning that School for the Blind, where the mascot is a soaring eagle and the philosophy is firmly grounded in empowering each individual to achieve their dreams. As far as Sifrin is concerned, she said, there aren't enough hours of the day to chase those dreams. He moves very fast, talks fast, and thinks fast. And then she referred to his cane, which she calls my car, and it's in turbo mode. The reporter spent a day following students who were studying in the classroom, learning life skills by baking and performing chores, practicing for the Braille Challenge, or participating in competitive athletics. And she wrote, they're all kids trying to learn and find their place in life and prepare for the future. Fabia said to her, it's true, I can't drive yet. I think in my lifetime, though, technology will advance to self-driving cars, but just because I don't drive doesn't mean I don't do. And there's nothing I can't do because I'm blind. The article highlighted his track practice, where he runs along a straight track with a hand on the guide wire and eventually for the longer distances goes back and forth across the straight track. She also wrote about the fact that the school is a hub of vision expertise that connects other vision professionals, listens to schools' needs, and identifies solutions, resources, and services to stem gaps and shortages. Last May, 5 transition students graduated from the school, underscoring the school's emphasis on developing independence and skills to use throughout life. The school's transition program, which is comprehensive and individualized, provides targeted training in skills and experiences to make effective transition from high school to adulthood and the working world. Shifting back to Fabia, it talked about him living in the school dormitory during the week with 2 roommates. It described a house cleaning lesson, part of his daily chores and skill training. Students living in the dorm can apply to live in the apartment for a month or 2 and must pass a safety test prior to moving on. Living in this space gives them an opportunity to experience independent living, including cleaning, paying the bills, and cooking meals. Then we all decided, as the article says, to go see Helen. Many of you know Helen. She's the English language arts teacher at the school. She is visually impaired herself and has been a fixture at the School for the Blind for 19 years, teaching and mentoring students and coaching the school's Braille Challenge, in addition to being the forensics coach. One of Hans' proudest accomplishments is the Kansas Sunflower Regional Braille Challenge, a reading and writing contest for Braille students from Kansas and surrounding areas. It highlights the importance of Braille reading and writing and offers positive motivation to help teachers and families counteract declining literacy rates, according to Helen. Each year, at least 1 or 2 students go to the national competition in LA. This past year, 45 students between grades 1 and 12 participate in the competition on the State School for the Blind's campus. 60 students from regional championships across the country go to the nationals, 12 in each of 5 age groups. They have to be invited to the nationals. Brooke Petro, 7 of Leawood, represented the school in that regional competition at the nationals. She won the Braille Superstar Award for excellence in reading comprehension. And her comment was, "That was a breathtaking moment." And I apologize for not having these match exactly what I'm saying, but I thought the setup was going to be different. Anyway, Lynn Petro, Brooke's mother, watched Brooke practice with her Braille Challenge buddies in Hans' classroom. This place is full of people with empathy and understanding for a visually impaired child. The moment you walk in the school, you feel a spirit from every staff member and teacher. They are here to help these kids accomplish. The kids feel the positive energy and love. It's indescribable what the Kansas State School for the Blind does beyond teaching. Visually impaired kids learn that they can be okay in life, and that's powerful stuff. I think that is a nice way to conclude that report. If you have any questions on the School for the Blind.
We do have a couple questions.
Okay.
Steve Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Last time fellow member Janet Waugh and I visited, we talked about having a statewide program for testing children, maybe at age 2, age 4, that kind of thing for vision. Is there any progress being made on that from what you can see?
I think that there are different things going on in different parts of the state. I think the Can Love Kids was trying to catch kids, but oftentimes they do get up to school age before it's caught. I don't know that we have done any more planning, except that we're really trying to work with the 0 through 3 population through infant toddler networks, and are working with people at the state level to make sure that if anything doesn't seem quite right, that that we are notified so we can come in and do some testing and prescribe a course of action.
Okay, Madeline, do you know of any state that's doing this successfully?
I do not personally, but I can look into that.
Thank you.
Carolyn Campbell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was very much interested in the community-based instruction, and I was curious how many students we have doing that.
Ooh.
And I guess I'm assuming that it's the high school students that...
Yes, it is. Secondary students.
Okay.
I'd have to go, 12, maybe
12.
as many as 15.
Okay. My other question is on the Head Start classes. What's the enrollment there?
There are, you have the space, and that tells you how many students can enroll. I believe the cap is 17 for one classroom, and the other one is a morning session and an afternoon session. I don't know if they're at 17 both. So,
but the maximum would be 17 for each of the classes.
Right, and I think they're close to capacity.
Okay, thank you.
Sally Cobble.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like to answer Steve's question. There is a program statewide by the Kansas Optometric Association that it's called See to Learn, and it gives free checks to 3-year-olds. And so there's a See to Learn doctor practically in every community. And so all the parents need to do is call and sign up and ask for their 3-year-old assessment, and they'll be seen. And the eyes are one thing that grows and changes with a person, and so that sometimes, unless they're blind, some things don't show up till later on in life. And so, but there is a statewide program that is free to parents.
Well, then, I think we're ready for the next part of your report.
Okay, this is about the Kansas School for the Deaf. Again, I'm picking out and highlighting a few things. I wanted to start with the bilingual department. We've hired a part-time language facilitator to support 2 students at the secondary level who have not previously had the experience of functioning socially and academically with American Sign Language, ASL. Now, students at the elementary level are less dependent on this service because they're still in the elementary classrooms are still in the natural language acquisition, both English and ASL. So teachers, paras, dorm staff, their peers naturally provide them language acquisition and learning opportunities throughout the day. But the secondary students, of course, are beyond that point, and that's why they require someone to help them attain that level of ASL that they need to in order to be getting the content from the classes. The focus of our language planning committee has been on compiling assessment information of all of our students on language and communication. They look at the students' current expressive and receptive language skills, both in printed English and in spoken English, as well as ASL. The assessment can help the teachers adapt their teaching bilingually and also bimodally, meaning the ASL and spoken English, and aid in making sure that the opportunities in all language modes are provided. Last summer, we moved a multimedia room into the high school building to increase student and teacher access. It's called the BL3, Bilingual Learning Lab, and it is used to view instructional videos like news shows or ASL stories who are read by deaf actors. And this is all in ASL. The BL3 has a video library, a large flat screen TV, 10 student computers for both word processing and video editing, and a green room for shooting videos. It's used daily by the yearbook class, digital art classes, the ASL immersion classes, and language arts classes. Next, I'd like to touch on transition services and dual placement. We have 5 students at the moment who are working in internships or just doing some work experience. But one of the internships I wanted to point out was in the office of a local United States congressman. Also, we are continuing to do the dual placement, and it's growing, between KSDE and the Olathe schools, and it's doing very well. We have a new software program, Virtual Job Shadow, which allows students to explore many different careers. They sometimes come without having seen a lot of people on various jobs, and because their experience is somewhat limited, we need to help them explore more jobs that they could do. And then another area I wanted to highlight was the Early Childhood Center. It is growing. We have 15 students right now with 2 teachers. They are working on bilingual teaching and learning, particularly in the bimodal use. They're doing a lot of signing of American Sign Language and a lot of spoken English with these students. They are manifesting their success in acquiring and developing both ASL and spoken English. There's also a parent play group which offers a myriad of workshops to parents, such as teaching behavior expectations and managing behavior, giving them resources to use at home, and of course, teaching them about the ASL English bilingual education their students are getting. And finally, the apartment program at the School for the Deaf, we finally officially opened in August. And it is proceeding. The coordinator uses weekly lessons with the students in the apartment to teach them how to find an apartment, figure the average cost of monthly expenses, things like utilities and groceries. We're planning on some guest speakers to talk about healthy lifestyles and how to develop healthy low-cost menus. Switching now to outreach. I believe we've talked about the auditory training unit. Those are wireless assistive listening devices. It's like a personal FM program. Students with hearing impairments use those in the classroom. It picks up the teacher's voice through a microphone, transmits it using radio waves to the student wearing the corresponding FM receiver. So in essence, it moves the teacher's mouth right up to the student's ears and cuts out background noise. We have 228 of those around the state that our audiologist brings to students whose district are borrowing them from us. We also have the infant hearing aid loaner bank and have loaned out 11 hearing aids so far this quarter. The Birth to 3 person also is working with 17 families in various networks. And I believe I will go ahead now and talk about, it's very, very unusual that each school will have had something come out in a newspaper about the schools. And they came out the same day. The article in the Star and this article I'm going to talk about came out in the New York Times. The reporter called and interviewed a former School for the Deaf principal, and she now runs the Deaf Cultural Center, which is across the street from the school, for an article on Luther Dummy Taylor. Mr. Taylor was a student, a teacher, and a coach at the Kansas School for the Deaf, but he also helped the Giants win the World Series in 1905. So I think you can figure out why that reporter latched onto that and called. He was known as Dummy Taylor. He was a pioneer pitcher. He helped the New York Giants at that time win their first World Series of the modern era in 1905. During his time with the Giants from 1900 to 1908, many of his teammates learned to sign. Sandra Kelly, the director of the DCC, has an exhibit which is dedicated to Luther Taylor. He was a class valedictorian and a top baseball prospect. And KSDE has a gymnasium named after him. Also, there is another part of that exhibit that highlights Paul Hubbard, who was a former KSDE student athlete and a star football player. And Hubbard, when he graduated, he went to Gallaudet, which is a private university for the deaf and hard of hearing in Washington, D.C., and there he's credited with inventing the huddle in a football game as a way to prevent opponents from seeing what the team was signing to each other, because everybody signed in that university, so they didn't want anyone knowing what they were going to do. And we have our football field is dedicated to Paul Hubbard. Going back to Luther Taylor, he joined the Giants in 1900. Actually, in 1904, the Giants won their first pennant, but first pennant of the 20th century. But they were having an argument with the American League at the time, and so there was no World Series. But the next year, in 1905, with Taylor going 16-9, they played in their first modern era World Series and won. The opponents in that game were the Philadelphia Athletics. And of course, they later moved to Kansas City. So I thought there were a lot of ties in here with us. Taylor's influence went beyond pitching. Some have argued that the baseball signs, and by that I think mean the umpire's hand signals, became a fixture because of him. And there are disputes to that. But anyway, they did that, and they've also talked about in the outfield, he was the one that had to call who would get the ball because he couldn't hear anybody else call it, so they let him call it. In those days, deaf and mute players were routinely called dummy, as in Dummy Leitner or Dummy Deegan, and Taylor was no exception. But at that time, he appreciated the nickname because it indicated that he could sign, and he was proud of that. Taylor's managers encouraged his teammates to learn the language so they could communicate with him, and many did. Any questions?
We have a question from Carolyn Campbell.
Thank you. Good morning. I had some questions. First of all, I have three. The apartment residents, how many do we have there now?
At the School for the Deaf, there are 11.
11. Okay. How many in the School for the Blind now? Okay.
Well, I know it's smaller than that. I'm sorry, I don't know at the moment.
That's all right. The parent play group, Do they meet regularly with staff?
They do.
Then finally, the accreditation section here said that you all identified your strengths and weaknesses. And so I was just wondering if you could share those.
You know what? I think I am going to ask Luann Barron, who is the assistant superintendent at the School for the Deaf, to come up and speak to that, because she could do a better job.
Good morning. Related to our accreditation that took place in February, we did have a list of strengths or accommodations and list of areas for improvement. The largest area was parent-teacher conferences that the parent-teacher group responded to. They felt that needed to be reestablished, and we did do that this fall, and we plan to have parent-teacher conferences again in the spring. And so that was one of our big accomplishments. We are also currently working on developing a better database to keep track of school growth. We had a database before, however, it didn't provide enough clear information for stakeholders and the teacher group, and so we're developing a more user-friendly database for those groups. A third area was teachers requested more professional development time to focus on curriculum and the Kansas Career Ready standards, and so we did build in more time for that. We, with that additional day of professional development, definitely helped in that area. So those are our three main accomplishments and the three areas that they recommended. And then there's other areas that are more minor that we're still working on. Any questions? Those are that's what I mentioned, the database, and those were the weaknesses, and those are what we've already been working on.
Okay, thank you.
Sally Calder. I pass. It got answered.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Luann and Madeline, for being with us and bringing us information. It's always good to hear about particularly the outreach and how that's being expanded. So we appreciate it. Next on our agenda, we have Don Gifford, who's going to bring us an update on our History, Government, and Social Studies standards. Thank you for being here, Don.
You're welcome. Good morning. Just kind of an update on the statistics surrounding AP US History. In Kansas, we give about 15,400, just shy of that, AP tests. Of those, 2,057 are AP US History tests. That represents less than 6% of the class. A-push classes tend to be significantly more difficult than regular history classes. Students generally can earn college credit. Many schools offer dual credit with AP courses as well. My experience has been all students that take AP US History also take the state assessment. So there's no opting out. And generally speaking, my experience has been that AP students usually score better on state assessments than their regular classroom counterparts. We also have a AP fee reduction grant that comes from USDE that reduces the cost of AP exam from $91 down to around $20. Generally speaking, College Board charges $91 for the test, lets the school keep $9. A lot of schools just don't even keep that $9 and just charge them $83 or $84 or something like that for the test.
Don, just to be clear, AP classes are elective.
That is correct. AP classes are all elective, and different schools have different criteria, but kids choose to be in those classes. That's right. College Board gives scores from 1 to 5. These classes are designed to be the equivalent of a 2-semester college class. So essentially 6 hours of credit that they would save. They give scores from 1 to 5, with 5 being exceptionally well qualified, 4 being well qualified, 3 being qualified, 2 being, well, they might be qualified, and 1 is no recommendation. So that's how the kids are scored.
What score do they need to qualify for college credit then?
That's generally left up to the college itself. In the state of Kansas, K-State and KU both take 4s and 5s, and 3s are kind of iffy. They usually ask for some kind of support from grades or something else to get them college credit. But it does depend upon the institution. So, addressing a few of the criticisms, one of the criticisms that you've been hearing is the negative or positive slant of the new framework. When you hear those words, that's people trying to validate a particular point of view. In other words, history is a story, a narrative that is told, and we need a particular narrative to be told in order to accomplish this. They're looking, or they think they've found the truth in history, and so they want to prescribe that truth. Really because of that, it really prescribes how kids are supposed to think about their history. This is a positive view says, hey, kids, we want you to think positively about our history. A negative view, well, we want you to think negative about their history. Truth is, there are lots of things that can go both ways in the argument. The second view is the one I know we took with our standards and the one that Common Core took, which is more about inquiry and less about absolute truth of facts. This position views history as a verb. It's the process of inquiring, discovering, and finding out. It's much less about saying these are the true things, these are the facts. So we allow students to investigate, determine for themselves the historical narrative, and then the position the students need to ask questions and draw conclusions, and then have evidence to back and draw those conclusions up. And I think that's one of the issues where the College Board, and as a former AP US history teacher, I'll tell you that under the former framework, it was a sprint from day one, which was pre-Columbian Native Americans, to the Reagan administration. If you wanted to get everything you had to cover, you had to really sprint. And so I think AP responded to that criticism of a mile wide and an inch deep and changed their framework. This prescription of using it as inquiry is much less prescriptive. We're not telling kids what to think, or teachers for that matter, what to teach. The other argument that you'll hear is too much or too little arguments. Those are all arguments about bias and perspective. We wouldn't expect, for instance, we wouldn't expect the Southern Poverty Law Center and the Aryan Nation to agree on racism in the United States. I mean, we just wouldn't do that. And we wouldn't expect people from Virginia to agree with people from Kansas on how much Virginia history should be in the standards. Or for that matter, the environment, climate change, we wouldn't expect an oil company person to agree with Greenpeace about the amount of environmental education that's there. So that too much, too little arguments are all kind of about their particular perspective or bias. Somebody identifying what they think is important and then advocating for that. All history is about choices. It's all about choices. We can teach about the Puritans, but what do we teach? They came here for religious freedom, but didn't grant it to anybody else. Or Benjamin Franklin, what do we teach about Franklin? Who did all these wonderful things, but also wrote a few pretty racy letters and articles, including Fart Proudly. You have Thomas Jefferson, who wrote the Declaration of Independence, President of the United States, founder of the University of Virginia, and involved in an illegal and illicit affair with a 14-year-old, 30 years his junior. Well, what do you teach about history? We can talk about manifest destiny, and then we can talk about the senseless slaughter of women and children at Wounded Knee. So you're constantly making choices. I once responded to a parent who was critical of the things that I was teaching in a history class by saying, I would fight and die for my brother, not because he's perfect, but because he's my brother. And I think that's the kind of thing that we need to focus on, that relationship between our nation and our nation's history. So there are a couple things that I can advise you of. First of all, it's an elective class. We don't prescribe the class. We don't tell kids they have to take it, and less than 6% of our students do. The second thing is the College Board is a vendor, and they responded to educational and market issues to change their framework, which they changed, and those forces are what brought this product about. So with that being said, I'm done, and I'll respond to any questions that you might have.
My question, and I really think I know the answer to this, but I want to get it out there for public information. We as a state do not play any role in the development of the standards on the AP, in the AP framework, do we?
No. There was no state involvement other than, and actually no state involvement. College professors set the framework, and nobody from Kansas participated in that.
One other question, and then some other folks have them. Your statement that it is not prescribed in AP what teachers are to teach, but there are standards, and the students will be taking an assessment at the end of the course. So doesn't that really require a teacher to teach certain information?
In a sense, but you guys know when we had this conversation about our standards that we weren't going to prescribe. We were going to say, here are the things that you need to talk about in history. We're not going to tell you what you have to talk about to teach these things. We're just going to ask you to teach them. If you look at the framework document for the College Board, the grain size or the specifics are not there. They give them learning objectives, and they make learning objective statements. So when they talk, for instance, I saw earlier about World War II. In World War II, they say the Allied victory was a result of these collaboration of all these different forces and factors. Well, they expect you to talk about those forces and factors within their instruction. So they're not saying these are the things you have to talk about when you talk about World War II. But you probably will, because these are, D-Day, Eisenhower, these are significant things that you'll probably give them instruction with. But it doesn't prescribe that instruction.
Okay. Thank you. Ken Willard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Don, if I understand correctly what you've said, the the APUSH, or the AP history standards, are not intended to replace anything that's in our standards, but are in addition, and they are actually maybe a deeper and look at a broader fact base, I guess, or so that it's not intended to replace any of the things that we traditionally want kids to know and understand about U.S. history, but it's actually a broader look at history than is traditionally included.
Right. Generally considered more rigorous, and all of the kids are still held accountable to the same standards we have in Kansas. Right. Just because they take AP U.S. history doesn't get them out from under the state assessment.
Right. Okay.
They still take state assessment.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Dina Horst.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, you just answered one of my questions about whether they still took the state assessment. But the other component, do parents know the content of AP courses before they have their child enroll?
Well, in my 15 years of teaching AP US history, I never had a parent come to me before their child enrolled and said, what are you going to be teaching in this class? Now, I have had parents, after I've given them the syllabus, which most AP teachers give the syllabus.
So there is syllabus.
Right, have come in and say, well, what are we discussing or why are we doing this? And I've had those questions before. But generally speaking, parents don't inform themselves.
So they don't
stuff in
see the
advance.
syllabus before they sign up.
They react. Generally, they react to things that are going on in the classroom as opposed to take some kind of proactive.
All right. Well, that'd probably be up to a local district whether they provided that information prior.
I know a lot of districts
to
have
enrollment.
informational meetings about AP before the school year. A lot of kids, about February of the year before, they enroll for their classes, and generally there's an informational meeting there about what AP entails and that kind of stuff.
So if a parent has concerns, they can withhold their child from that AP course.
Oh, sure. But I would suggest they talk with their counselor.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Sally Cobble.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Don, you say the college board is responsible for these. If we wanted to send somebody to talk to the college board instead of us, how would we contact this group?
They're a pretty well-known educational entity. They're the ones that do the SAT. And so they have a website and contact us information. And David Coleman currently is the CEO of the College Board, who was previously the CEO of College Career Standards and Assessment. I mean, the Common Core group.
So what would their website be?
I'll give it to you.
Could you just email me the contact information, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
That brought a question.
Actually, I think it may be on your Friday letter from a couple weeks ago, so you might be able to find it.
Have you looked at their website? Do they have their standards out there like we do?
Well, yeah, they don't have. Their standards are like ours in a sense, in that our document's 129 pages long. I think theirs is 144 pages long or something. But they have, at the first of that document, themes and then learning objectives, which would be similar to what we would call standards.
Well, I was just thinking if a parent had a concern prior to their student taking the class, that might be a good source of information.
That framework is available online.
Yeah. Okay. Kathy Bush.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's actually just what I was going to ask. On the website, parents could go to the College Board's website and look at that framework and those standards for probably any of the AP courses.
Right, and there are lots of resources out there that College Board puts out, but they put out sample assessments as well. Although this is a new transition year, this is a new assessment that they're bringing out, which has, much like our assessment, fewer multiple choice questions, more open-ended kind of performance task questions. So their assessment's changing this year as well.
Okay, thank you.
Are there other questions? Well, thank you, Dawn, for getting us back on our time schedule.
No problem.
We appreciate you being here. Looks like it's lunchtime, so we will break for lunch and resume our meeting at 1:30.